as Vladimir Putin meets Kim Jong-un in North Korea for the first time in 2 decades. Russia and North Korea promised to strengthen their ties and even sign a mutual defense pact where they will have each other's back if they are ever attacked by a hostile country. We all know who they're talking about. And this meeting has led to universal freakout from the West. Even Bloomberg saying that Putin meeting with Kim Jong-un is a danger to the world. For all the Americans freaking out over this meeting, do you know how a map works? Here is the map of the region. Why wouldn't Russia have a friendly relationship with their neighbors in North Korea and China? Vladimir Putin meeting with Xi Jinping and Kim Jong-un is not scary. This is what countries do. They meet with their neighbors, you children. Meanwhile, let's compare this with the deeply serious dialogue that we are hearing from the White House right now.
We talk on it. Yes.
Very inspiring stuff. What's sad is that most Americans can't even explain why we are supposed to have this deep-seated hatred for North Korea in the first place. Americans killed over 2 million Koreans in a gross violation of their sovereignty and continue to starve the country with economic sanctions to this day. But Americans hate them? There are polls that consistently show that around 1/3 of Americans support nuking North Korea. I'm an American, and I don't support North Korea because the way they treat their people. So in response, we should nuke their people. Meanwhile, we're supposed to believe that North Koreans and Russians are the problem. The Black misleadership class is giving genocide Joe Biden their full approval of his illegal invasion into Haiti. President Joe Biden met at the White House with so-called Black leaders like Al Sharpton. Even the NAACP was there in order to promote his campaign into Haiti. The role of the Black misleadership class is to manufacture consent among the Black community for aggressive imperialist action. And this is exactly what they are doing in Haiti. Remember, the majority of the Haitian people want to solve their internal conflict by themselves without influence of outside foreign actors. And Haitians have every reason to feel this way because whenever the United States and the West get involved with their affairs, they show over and over again that they actually don't care about the Haitian people and they are trying to advance their own interests. Ask the Clinton Foundation about all the aid money that was supposed to go to Haiti, by the way. The only thing the United States, Kenya, and the West is going to accomplish in Haiti is get a lot of Kenyan cops killed, a lot of Haitians killed, and further destabilize the country. Why is President Ruto of Kenya going along with this? Why is Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, and the NAACP meeting with genocide Joe Biden and stamping their approval on this? It's because they're sellouts. The Black misleadership class completely sold out MLK's vision of rejecting militarism. Now we have people like Hakeem Jeffries that take millions of dollars from AIPAC to support their genocide, and the NAACP supporting the destabilization of Haiti. White liberals are more than happy to prop up these sellouts in order to advance their neoliberal imperialist agenda. The Black community need to stop propping these people up, and we need to embrace peace as a part of our culture.
What's poppin', my friends? We're the star of that. What's poppin', my friends, my family? Welcome. We have a special edition of RBN Friday Live. We have a fantastic roundtable for you guys. We had a banger yesterday. You guys know this new era, man, is truly the era of banger after banger, because I was listening to the reparations panel that Savvy and JB put together last night, and it was just, I just seen amazing intellectual brothers and sisters dismantle the talking points of the capitalist imperialist class. It was something to behold. Savvy and JB show is back and they're stronger than ever. You guys know I'm dropping my 4 hot spots a week. I was off. I didn't do a live stream yesterday, but you guys know I was still in the lab cooking. Your boys I'm always in the lab cooking, my friends. I'm always in the lab cooking. Big shout out to Murray Kimberly and everyone at the Black Alliance for Peace, who is my primary source and my inspiration for doing that video. I unapologetically, as I said many times before, when you look at the people who inspire me in my politics, it's the Murray Kimberlys, the Glenn Fords. We had the John Mubarak. These are our Black intellectual leaders that inspire the work I do, and I cannot emphasize that enough. And we start out with the name Fred Adnan Leftists because we emphasize that our community need to advance the politics of our Black revolutionary leaders. And unlike this sellout motherfucker, who's not invited to no cookout that I know of, he hides behind Morton Joe and the liberal bourgeoisie because he knows he's not welcome in the hood. But it's beyond Al Sharpton, no. Because they wouldn't know he's a clown. But you have the NAACP supporting the U.S.-led invasion into Haiti. And I mentioned this hotspot video, what it's going to accomplish? Nothing. It's not going to accomplish anything but cause more death and destruction for the Haitian people, like all other Haitian interventions. And they know this. They're not a good guy in this story. And honestly, Haiti is an issue that many of the global population get wrong, including leaders that I generally favor, like AMLO and Lula, who get this incorrect. Let Haiti solve their own problem. That is what the Haitian people want. The entirety of the Black Congressional Caucus, the entirety of it, including the quote-unquote Black progressives who buy into this bullshit regarding Haiti. So, well, you guys know what's going to happen, right? They're going to send Kenyan police into Haiti, and they're going to get massacred. What's the strategy? How are they going to, quote-unquote, quell this rebellion? They got popular support. They are armed militia that are very tactical. The only thing you're going to do is get these Kenyan police officers or any of these imperialist volunteers killed, plus Haitian people killed. Why? So you can install the illegitimate government that the Haitian people didn't vote for? And do you guys know, by the way, something that no one else ever mentions, that they have this Kenya U.S.-led coalition going to Haiti, right? President Ruto, who ran on a platform of like African liberation, President Ruto of Kenya, he used to do these speeches talking about how you African leaders need to stop being summoned by Western leaders in Western states. Need to stop being summoned like children and doing their bidding. He ran on this aggressive pro-Africa agenda of rejecting being Western puppets, that we need to start doing the bidding for Africa, which is very popular now. And then as soon as he took power, he sold out the speed of light. And he used to speak about how African leaders just be summoned outside the country and how they should stop doing that. And then the first thing he did, they summoned his ass to the UK, summoned his ass to the United States, summoned his ass to South Korea. But that's the trend of sellout leaders in Africa. Many of them run on a pro-African liberation agenda, and they take power, and then they sell their people out in record time. This Kenyan president, President Ruto, is an incredible sellout. So he signs up for this Haitian intervention with the United States, where essentially Kenya is sending the manpower out. And this is rejected by the people of Kenya and the institutions of Kenya. You have the Kenyan courts that ruled it's unconstitutional. You got Kenyan lawyers all over the place that is begging President Ruto not to do this because this will only alienate their status with this new African liberation movement. Now, and it will get their own people killed. It does not benefit Kenya like all security agreements African leaders agree with. So you have Kenyan courts, Kenyan lawyers that are blocking the police deployment, and President Ruto is acting illegally against the order of the Supreme Court and sending Kenyan police officers to Haiti. Why? For genocide Joe Biden. And I'm gonna bring my guests in here. I got some great guests. But you guys want to know why he's doing this? To get a little pat on the head by the same Western imperialist leaders that he used to criticize. Guys, you should look at old President Ruto's speeches. We talking about how African leaders need to stop following the evil West Needs to stop being summoned by the evil West. Now look at this. Kenya to get major non-NATO ally status during President's U.S. state visit. So Kenya got the pat on the head by Joe Biden. Thank you for selling out your people. Thank you for engaging in this illegal action. Here's another headline. Here's the BBC, because the West loves this guy. The West like, this guy is a new up-and-coming charismatic leader. They had Barack Obama meet President Ruto. Barack Obama did a meet and greet with them, and now he's the most respected African leader among the West. Why? Because he sold their people out. So I'm sorry for that long introduction, but I want to introduce my guests, and I have a very powerful roundtable today. I'm going to start with John Looking Glass. Hopefully I got that correct. I want to take this time to introduce you. I appreciate you taking time to join us. John is an amazing indigenous activist and educator. So it's great to meet you and great to have you on RBN. Do you want to start by just quickly introducing yourself before I bring my other guests? Explain your work and what got you into activism and educating the proletariat. Thank you for joining us.
My name is John Looking Glass, and I've been involved since I've been 14 years old. I'm 60 going on 64. I started around the time that Wounded Knee too. We know about imperialism. You speak about Haiti. We know that without a doubt. We're still dealing with it today. I mean, 2% of the United States is left to the natives as reservations. But where do all your pipelines go? Across our lands. That's where it goes. And that only makes up 2% of the entire United States. Haiti is in the turmoil it's in. It all got started with the French. That's where it all got started at. They left out of there and they just robbed them blind for how many years, making them pay money. Left them in destitute. So everybody started gathering up in gangs and fighting for what they wanted. Now the U.S. is involved. The U.S. has been involved in genocides and wars since they came to this country, before they even formed this country. They killed thousands, millions of American Indians and took them. Today we don't, and then it gets me angry. I mean, I understand reparations, but they never speak of us.
That's why in our panel we mentioned this, because it's important to advocate for justice for everyone, because if you don't advocate for justice for everyone, you won't get justice. Exactly. Because we strongly advocate for justice for indigenous Americans. And because they gave justice for the victims of the Holocaust, for example, because they gave reparations and they addressed their crimes against the people who was in Japanese concentration camps, we must advocate for justice for everyone, or you will eventually become a victim. So that's why we have strong solidarity with the indigenous movement as well. And that was a point that was strongly made. But go ahead, John.
Well, it's the same thing that's going on today in Palestine.
Yeah, for sure.
Israel is basically trying to wipe them off the planet. The U.S. has backed them up until lately because suddenly Biden's worried about not winning the election because it is that tight between him and Trump. I don't like Biden at all. Okay? I don't like Trump. I've got to vote for one of them, and sure hell ain't going to be Trump. And we all don't want that because you think he was bad when he was here before, he's going to be worse. He's already made it. I mean, all you got to do is look at this Project 2025 and what they're doing with it, what they want to do. Natives, we've been dealing with this stuff since they landed on the shores. I mean, look what they, most people say, oh, the Democrats are good people. Look what they did at Standing Rock in 2016. Sending militarized police with water cannons on freezing nights to spray us down. For what? For oil. They didn't give a shit about us or the people that depended on that river for water. It's all about money. It's all these people care about. Biden's just as bad, but we've got no choice. You've got to make a choice between the two evils. I know my grandfather said, you make a choice between two evils, you're still choosing evil.
Yeah, you're still choosing genocide. You're still choosing your oppression. So what I would say is that we don't have to choose between that. I think the only option we have is to organize among each other and make sure that we don't corrupt our souls by supporting the people.
I'm telling you right now, I already know how this is going to work. We've seen it already. It's already happened once. 2016 election. People didn't like Hillary Clinton. They didn't like her. What happened?
Yeah, we still dodge a bullet.
Got Trump.
We dodge a bullet.
Okay? We thought we dodged a bullet by not getting hurt. The fact was,
We did dodge a bullet.
Where we ended up with it even worse.
Oh, we definitely dodged a bullet. So if you see everything that Biden is doing now, can you imagine if Hillary got involved? Hillary criticized.
The only reason
Hillary criticized Obama because she felt like Obama's foreign policy wasn't muscular enough.
You gotta understand, when it comes to the black community, that all ended when Martin Luther King died. When Martin Luther King died, the government began buying out the churches that were the backbone of it all and giving them money to support them. And once that was done, there's been no more dissent. Black churches are quiet. They don't stand up like they used to.
I'm going to continue the conversation, but I want to bring my other guests as well. I don't want to keep them waiting for too long. This is an interesting conversation. Let's bring in the Guerilla History podcast, and I want to give them time to introduce themselves. We have Adnan, I believe, and Henry from the Guerilla History podcast. I want to give you time to introduce yourself, your work, what inspired the Guerilla History podcast. Now I want to continue the conversations. We can start with Henry, because I saw you on mute, and then your co-host, Adnan.
Sure. So I'm Henry. I'm, as you mentioned, one of the co-hosts of Guerilla History. I'm also an editorial board member of Iskra Books. I'm an educator based in Russia, although from my accent, you may understand that I am not Russian myself. I'm American. With regard to what Guerilla History is all about, I'll turn it over to my co-host, Adnan, but I'm very happy about the topics that you've selected today, and I certainly have plenty to say on everything from Haiti to Kenya to the other topics that you have in the docket. So, Adnan, I'll turn it over to you.
We can go to that after your co-host. I'm interested in hearing your thoughts, but go ahead, Adnan.
Sure.
Well, it's a pleasure to be on RBN. I've been admiring this show since it was called Fred Hampton Socialist.
Nice,
and my name's Adnan Hussein. I'm a professor of history up in Canada, but I'm also an American. I specialize on Middle Eastern and Islamic world history. And I'm a co-host of Guerilla History podcast. Henry and I started it with a friend from Revolutionary Left Radio, Brett O'Shea, as a way of using history as a resource. I mean, I think history is not just some neutral ground of knowledge. It's a resource in our struggles for justice. And the idea was we need to learn lessons from history, be inspired by our history, celebrate the history of our heroes who have fought and struggled, and carry on that heritage and legacy. So that's the purpose of Guerilla History, is to inform activist social struggle for justice today.
Yeah, and I explain, and I'll pass it to Henry for your thoughts as well. But I explained many times on the show that I was very apolitical until I got into history. Most of my teenage years, I just followed general liberal culture, and then once I graduated high school, that's when my real education began, because I started really diving into the real history, the history of empires. I got very fascinated with slavery, indigenous history as well. Like, I learned what really happened. Instead of in high school, they told us bullshit stories about how they got along with indigenous people, but indigenous people were just too mean. And I'm like, you hear these stories they tell us, it's unbelievable. Like these like Thanksgiving nonsense stories they'll tell you. And then I learned, like, no, they committed a genocide. Like, what? So I'm like, all right, so if they was doing that in the past, this would trigger my thought into being critical of our government. I saw the sins of the past, so it would be ridiculous to assume they're not doing stuff now. So as I was seeing all these crimes the government was doing, I was like, all right, what they're doing right now? Then George Bush. I mean, you got George Bush, Iraq. You got Obama. They got destroying Syria, Libya, and I'm watching all this shit like, bro, we are living through history. But I want to pass to Henry. We get you back in there, brother. But Henry, any other thoughts before you get John back in the conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to add to what Adnan was saying regarding the purpose of Guerilla History. It really is to provide that historical insight to activists. We have about 170 episodes at this point, which are between 1 and 3 hours long, and feature expert guests on a variety of topics, everything from modern Chinese history to Pan-African struggles on the continent, to Latin American struggles during the Cold War, indigenous struggles, and beyond. So you can find that wherever you get your podcasts. The episodes are quite long, but we hope that you find them useful. Regarding the topics of Haiti and Kenya, I don't want to portray myself as an expert. I know that when we were first reached out to, we were asked to be the expert guests on these subjects, and I wanted to make clear that we're not in the position to portray ourselves as the... What was that?
He's saying we're not experts, and we're not. We're just not stupid enough to buy all the crap that everybody throws in our face.
Well said. And the point of the channel is...
Hello, am I frozen?
You have, I think you may have some connection issues a little bit, Henry, but let's see if we can... I still hear what you say a little bit, but my whole thing is that we're here to educate each other, bounce ideas off our head, that we must reject anti-intellectualism.
Okay.
We must continue to grow and change as a movement. That's why I think it's...
Go
ahead, Henry. Now I can't hear you. Henry, try to...
okay, well, I'll try...
Technology, right?
Yeah, maybe sometimes you have to refresh it. So maybe if you refresh, it'll be better. Adnan, do you have any other thoughts before we continue?
Well, I think Brother John made a great point, is that, we may not be experts, but if you don't buy the BS, I would say you're way ahead of the game. And that's the whole problem now, is that we don't have a real accurate knowledge of our history, and we also don't understand what's going on today, because the sources of knowledge and information that we have are actually disinformation. So much of the media is retailing biased perspectives and manipulating issues that should be very clear if you stand on principles of universal justice. Should be clear, that, for example, John mentioned the settler colonial project of Israel looks very much to an indigenous, North American as the same kind of settler colonial project that perpetuated a genocide on this continent. And it should be possible, if you stand for principles of justice and freedom, to be able to recognize that. But there's so much disinformation, in the media that doesn't even accord Palestinians with, even the minimal level of humanity in order to, have our sympathy and to be able to recognize that they are an oppressed people that we should stand in solidarity with. So, when we look at all of these issues, we have to take up, there's so much work to do, because you have to take apart the myths and the bias and the disinformation before you can even start educating yourself. But so what John said is that at least that's the first step, is recognize that you're being told and sold a line that accords with U.S. imperial designs when it comes to Haiti. Nothing that we're hearing about the situation in Haiti is meant to be able to allow us to foster our political education and stand in solidarity with the Haitian people. It's only to project U.S. power. And when you called out, Nick, all of these, the black misleadership class, this is exactly the problem, is that U.S. empire works in such nefarious ways that it even convinces oppressed people from within the United States that they will elevate their position and gain something by at least acting as an agent of U.S. empire abroad.
Yeah.
This is the sort of the absolute kind of consensus of the political class is always maintain. You can negotiate a lot of things on domestic politics, some nuances here or there, but they must maintain U.S. imperial hegemony abroad.
Well said, man. And this is what I mentioned earlier, and they do so much damage because their job is to manufacture consent for militarism in their community. Now compare that to our black revolutionary leaders of the past, like MLK, for example, Malcolm X, Fred Hampton, who reject militarism. who was harsh critics of the empire.
And what
And
happened?
now you have go
What
ahead, John, if
happened
you
to
want to come in.
What happened to them? They're
Yep.
all murdered.
Yep.
Fred
And the
Hampton,
ones who wasn't sold
all
out,
of
like
them.
John Lewis. The people like John Lewis got a job. But go ahead, John.
Well, you know, the thing is that this has been ongoing. This is not something that's new. This has been going on before this country was even founded. You know, we've got Ukraine. We never told the story that Putin said, hey, as long as you guys don't become part of NATO, I ain't got a problem with you.
Oh, yeah, we're going to get to that soon.
Okay? What did the U.S. do? The U.S. forced and pushed and pushed and pushed to bring Ukraine as part of NATO. And what happens? We supply weapons of war to everybody. And the fact is, that's what drives our economy. That's what the biggest amount of money from our government goes to, is towards the war machine. Defense contractors. They've got more lobbyists in Washington, D.C. than our actual senators and Congress people.
Yep.
As long as people keep sitting back and taking what's thrown in their face as fact and not actually looking into things and find out what's really going on, we're never going to change. In this country, you have 6 corporations that control 90-some% of the media. And folks like us, they shut us down. I got shut down on Facebook because they said I told too much truth.
Hey, that's how I know you're on the right track then. If they're not fucking
with
you up, you doing something wrong.
The page we do in Indigenous. Okay? We've got 150,000 followers. We're lucky if 20,000 see our posts today. Because we're being filtered because they don't want us to tell the truth.
Yep. That's all they have is rank authoritarianism and censorship now. Because
you think about Haiti. The only reason that U.S. is cuddled up to Kenya was to get black soldiers to go to Haiti, so it looks like the white guy's not doing this.
Exactly. That's exactly it, John. You nailed it, because that's exactly why they recruited Kenya. But go ahead, Henry, if you want to chime in. This is an open conversation, so feel free to chime in anytime, guys.
Sure. Let me know if I'm having connection problems still. I can try to use my wife's computer if so. But if you can hear me now, what I was going to say is that I don't want to portray myself as the expert on these things, but I can refer to my friends who are the experts on these things. So on Guerilla History, listeners will know that we have 2 episodes on the history of intervention in Haiti, one with Pascal Robert and one with Jemima Pierre, who is the coordinator of Haiti Americas with Black Alliance for Peace. And in both of these, we talk about why, when we think about Haitian history, people who are in support of Haiti tend to totalize Haitian history to the Haitian Revolution in this positive light, but then not look at what has happened since the Haitian Revolution. And then we have reactionaries who look at Haiti only in the current context and look at the material reality that Haiti is facing today, but shorn from any of the history that caused that material reality today, that material reality that was born out of Western imperialism. So that's why we talked about these histories. And again, I don't want to portray myself as the expert. Please seek out those episodes and listen and read the work of people like Pascal Robert and Jemima Pierre, who are both Haitian comrades. But with regard to Kenya, again, I am not the expert, but I can refer to my friend Booker Amole, who is the national vice chairperson of the Communist Party of Kenya, who has been on Guerilla History multiple times. Again, you can listen to him there. But he constantly is talking about how William Ruto is a stooge for Western imperialism. This is very clear. Even if we look within the last 2 days, Ruto was sending police officers. You mentioned that he's sending police officers to Haiti, but he's also sending police officers out into the streets of Nairobi to kill protesters against his government. That has happened within the last 2 days, including comrades in the Communist Party of Kenya. This calls to mind, and I'll try to be brief here, a passage from Walter Rodney, who is a favorite of mine, and I am hoping a favorite of many of your listeners. Walter Rodney, this is the last page of chapter 3 from The Groundings with My Brothers, talks about the phenomenon of white-hearted black men. So he says, through the manipulation of this media of education and communication, white people have produced black people who administer the system and perpetuate the white values, white-hearted black men, as they are called by conscious elements. At this time, he's talking about the president of Jamaica when he was giving these speeches that were then compiled into the Groundings with My Brothers. But this phenomenon is still seen today, where these black political leaders are fostered by Western imperialists to act on their behalf and have this white-hearted nature in terms of upholding the white-led imperialist world system. We always have to think about this in a systemic way. The white-led imperialist capitalist world system. William Ruto is an exemplar of this. He demonstrates it by killing his own people in the streets of Nairobi, protesting within the last 2 days. And he also demonstrates it by going along with the Western-led invasion of Haiti. An invasion, mind you, that is also, as you quite rightly pointed out in the introduction, supported by leaders like Lula. And if listeners who may be supportive of Lula, I highly recommend you again check out the work of Jemima Pierre. We also talk about Lula in the episode that we had with her very recently, within the last couple of weeks, actually, on Guerilla History, about intervention in Haiti. But she calls out Lula very explicitly for his role in upholding the Western imperialist dominion and conquest and subjugation of Haiti and the Haitian people.
There's so much I love.
You spoke about.
Go ahead, John. Go ahead, John.
You spoke about white-hearted blacks. In the Native community, we call them apples. They're red on the outside. I love how we all got different terms. Okay? They sell their people out for a pipeline. All right? We know these people. They run on our councils. They're our presidents on our tribal nations. We know these kind of people. And they're everywhere, in every race.
It's such a problem. I love how everyone have our own different terms for it. Because I was talking to the Palestinian Community Network. They said there's a problem in the Palestinian leadership with people who sell out to Zionism. The same way there's a problem with the Black Mist leadership class. I did countless live streams and segments, and I wrote my first Substack article about it. It's such a giant problem. But sorry, John, I want you to continue your thought. But everyone had their own unique term for it.
No, like I said, we call them apples. And we've been dealing with them since before this was even a country. They were the ones that were selling us out for whatever they could get. And they're still doing it today. They think they're helping. You look at Pine Ridge, which was my home before I was taken as a child. One of the poorest places in America. But you got a council that makes $30,000 a year just for travel expenses. Paid for by the United States government. They said we got our apples too, and nothing's going to change because there's not enough of us to stand up and say enough, because too many people take things at face value and don't say nothing. They don't care. You lose there, you home lose. Oh, okay, I guess I did it. It's my fault. No, it wasn't your fault. We've got people that are living homeless that should not be homeless. We've got rich bastards that are having houses because it makes them money. That's all people care about. Until we start caring about one another and put all this bullshit race and religion and all this other crap aside and think as one people, because we're all human beings and we're all connected.
Absolutely.
Until we do that, this shit's going to continue. And like I said, we got Biden and we got Trump. You don't want Trump in there. He's bad enough. Biden ain't no much better. But he's a hell of a lot better than what that crazy nut wants to do. And we've got, what gets me is that we got apples that want to vote Trump in. I mean, the insanity of it all. Tell me what would not be in prison right now if he was indicted for 94 charges. He'd be in prison. But this guy's running around doing this, doing that, and nobody says nothing. Oh, it's okay. They'll get him. No, they're delaying everything because it's election. And it ain't so easy as Biden and all the rest of them are going, oh, we're going to win this. No. Just last week, Trump was ahead by 3 points. You can't put it on polls, but people.
Yeah, John, I'm glad that you acknowledge both of them are bad. But I just
We're
want
all
people
human
to
beings. My
acknowledge that
culture
there's other
would say
options as
human
well.
beings.
Adnan,
Better
I know
realize
you.
that's who we are, because we forgot it.
Adnan, do
Well,
you want to
you
chime
know,
in? And John, I'll pass it back to you. Adnan,
well,
and then
yeah.
John, I'll get you back in here. But let's hear from Adnan,
Okay, sure.
and then I'll pass it back to
Well,
John.
I just think that we can't let the election be the only framework by which we talk about politics. I mean, I think, of course, it's important. It's coming up. It's the obsession. I'm right now in the UK. They've called an election. This, in fact, is actually globally the year of elections. There have been massive elections all over the world. India just had its election. South Africa had elections. France, they just called elections that will be taking place. So, of course, we're going to be thinking about political leadership and contestation, and can the left, pose a challenge? Why is the world tilting towards the far right? I mean, I think we have to look at it from a global perspective, that especially the entire West, but not even just in the West, but in a lot of other places, like in India, like in South Africa. I mean, the elections there were a bit of a disappointment because you have the emergence of basically apartheid light type parties returning to at least the official opposition. Why is the world moving dramatically towards the right? And I think it's the extreme right. And I think part of it, there's two components. One is it's just the way in which neoliberal capitalism for the last 30, 40 years has just totally undermined, the possibility of organized left, and has atomized us, so that we can't, really act in solidarity, has destroyed so many of these institutions. And the natural reaction to the abuses, the wars, the widening inequality is populism. But that populist energy, that disgust with the system and the way it has failed us, is an energy that can be captured by different kinds of forces. And so I think it's easier for the right to capitalize upon this kind of a situation. And the second part is that even the left institutions and the left parties have abdicated class analysis, and have embraced having a multicultural face of empire and of capitalism, of corporate dominance. And that isn't working to improve the situation. And it's just shifting all of your options further and further right politically. So if you're, you have to be canny. If you're in the United States, for example, if you believe Trump is even worse, I think, really the empire is the key. And there's going to be support for the empire, bipartisan, under either of these, kinds of regimes. Either of these candidates is going to kind of support the U.S. empire with maybe slightly different emphases. But if you want to prevent Trump, to prevent the right wing from capturing this populist energy, we have to support left populist alternatives, build those institutions, and not be held hostage without really thinking carefully. I mean, there's absolutely no reason, if you live in a state like California, New York, Texas, most of the states, there's only a handful of states. And in fact, there's not even, even in those states, we're talking about a handful of counties that are going to decide the election in this bankrupt system that we have. So if you're in any of these other safer, areas that are polarized, you can afford to support a candidate who represents an alternative in your conscience without actually changing the outcome of the election. That's one component. Now, if you really want to make a statement, we shouldn't vote shame people who are so fed up with this system that they don't mind suffering, a cycle, as long as we're going to mobilize people to fight. What I remember during the Trump years is one of the reasons why he wasn't able to accomplish very much is because he came out with his Muslim ban, and there were thousands of people in the streets blocking, the streets and shutting down airports. I mean, the resistance, was there. But once you have Biden, at the helm of U.S. empire, he's just as terrible on immigration. He's still got kids in cages. He's, doing, supporting genocide. And, there's less pressure on him from within the political establishment because, he's a Democratic president. So, I think, it's possible to differ on this, but it seems we shouldn't just have a knee-jerk kind of reaction that, Biden is the lesser of the evil, lesser of the two.
Henry, I'll pass it to you, and I want to get John in here. One thing
I'll be very brief.
Yeah, go ahead, Henry. Go ahead.
Just to add into what Adnan was saying and to underscore one of the points that he was making, that we should absolutely not limit our engagement to politics to electoralism. This is a failure that we see in most of the Western imperialist countries, where because of their positioning in the global imperialist system, it is easy for the populace of these countries to totalize their engagement with politics to electoralism. If we want to think about theoretical perspectives on what our engagement with electoralism should be, from a radical perspective, we should look at how our forebears in thought, such as Marx and Lenin, if you are somebody who is inclined the way that I am, the way that they were engaging with electoralism. There is a terrific book, and we have an episode on Guerilla History. It's like 3 years old now at this point, but we'll be remastering it in advance of this upcoming election cycle. So just stay tuned on the Guerilla History feed, and you'll see it coming up again. We talked with Professor August Nimtz about his book, The Ballot, the Streets, or Both, From Marx and Engels to Lenin and the October Revolution. And what it looks at is how these individuals, Marx, Engels, Lenin, were theorizing and then practicing electoralism. And the way that they engage with electoralism is radically different than the way that we see in the imperialist core, the populist that just says electoralism is what politics is all about. I am an engaged citizen if I vote. No, I'm sorry. You're not an engaged citizen if you vote. You are an engaged citizen if you are engaging in politics in your community and trying to affect actual change within the society that you're living in. So I highly recommend, I don't want to get too much into that work and Marx and Lenin and theory.
That's so well
but
said.
Check out that book and listen to the episode. Like I said, I'll be remastering it in advance of the election. So just follow the Guerilla.
That is so well said, Henry. And John, I'll get you back in here if you want to add anything. But that's so well said, Henry, because I was just talking about I was talking about this with Shama, where I think a lot of people misinterpret, where we don't expect revolution to come through electoral politics, but that don't mean there's no revolutionary potential within engaging in electoral politics. I mean, building our own socialist parties, using our own strategy, not using the bourgeoisie strategy, not using the capitalist strategy, and even regarding what was said on swing states. Like, I think if you live in swing state, you got more negotiation power than the average person does. I wish my vote don't mean shit. I live in Missouri. That shit going Republican either way. If you live in a swing state, my friend, that's where the fun begins. But John, I want to get you in here. I want your thoughts as well.
When it comes about elections, people got to realize something. You may vote, but it really don't count for anything because it's all about the electoral college. That's how Trump won in 2016. He didn't win the popular vote, but he won the electoral college. That's how he won. And to me, I think it should be done away with. I mean, it was good when it became originally because we had eastern states that had more people than those out west, and that way we kind of kept things in balance. But that's long gone. Okay, when you got California, which is one of the largest populations, the largest governments, I mean, it's time to end it. But we can't keep just dealing with this every freaking election cycle. Something's got to be done. And it's a shame because, like I said, in the 60s and the 70s, people stood up. But then people started getting bought out. You know, whether it be blacks or natives, they were bought out. Shut your mouth and you'll get nice money. And that's exactly what happened. And anybody who stood up, people like Hampton, or people that we had, they were murdered. And nobody got paid for anything of it. Look at
what they're doing to Amali from the Uhuru Socialist Movement. They going after him. Go ahead.
But it's only, like you said, you got the Comstock Act, you know, which was done in 1873, which was about what you could mail through the mail system. You got 3 Republicans right now that are trying to bring it back. Okay? And most people aren't talking about it, but one of those things is contraceptives through the mail. You say, well, that doesn't affect me. I don't get them through the mail, but your pharmacy does. Okay? We've got How many states? You got 14 states that have straight out outlawed abortion. Who as we as men have the right to tell a woman what to do with her damn body? It's none of our business. I come from a matriarchal society. We're not patriarchal, we're matriarchal. In other words, women ran things. So my grandfather taught me, you're here because of a woman. Period. Without her, you wouldn't be here. We all wouldn't be here.
You want to know what's funny on that topic in particular? All the liberals who have Putin derangement syndrome. You want to know where you can have an abortion at? I can't have it in Missouri, but you can have it in Russia. You want to know where you get paid maternity leave at? Russia.
I can attest to that.
So you have all these people. I'm not going to say names, but we know we're talking about the Bernie Sanders left, the progressive left, who has Putin derangement syndrome. When the entirety of their politics is just them trying to get caught up to Russia. Like they just got social democrat policies they're trying to get. But we only have about maybe 15, 20 minutes left. So I want to cover damn, do we even have time to get on to which one should we do? Ukraine or Israel? We got a lot to talk about. Let's start here because I think this is a blend of both. This highlighting the hypocrisy of the West. Where you have Blinken when it comes to Russia and Ukraine, they were saying, oh, we can never allow these war crimes to be normalized. Now, this in hindsight compared to what's going on in Gaza is hilarious. Listen.
We can never let the crimes Russia's committing become our new normal. Bucha is not normal. Mariupol is not normal. Irpin is not normal. Bombing schools and hospitals and apartment buildings to rubble is not normal. We can.
What he just said there is literally standard Israeli operation. But go ahead, Henry. I know you want to chime in. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, it goes beyond just Israeli. I mean, if we look at how the United States has engaged with conflict, historically, that is what always happens. As you mentioned with the DPRK at the beginning of this episode, 90% of the standing infrastructure was destroyed during the American war of aggression in Korea. In the DPRK. That is not limited only to military facilities. That was 90% of the standing infrastructure in the country. That, of course, includes things like hospitals, like schools. Are we going to pretend that Vietnam was not an area that was completely bombed to smithereens, regardless of whether we're talking about civilian or military infrastructure? Are we going to pretend that Iraq and Afghanistan were these bastions of morality in terms of the conflict? Of course, no. Now, the situation of Israel and Gaza, is adding the situation of a settler colonial entity being brutal against the colonized people there. This is very much the same way that the United States has and continues to brutalize the indigenous community of the United States, the same way that Canada brutalizes the indigenous community of Canada historically and in the present. Are we going to pretend that these countries did not destroy ways of acquiring knowledge in indigenous community? Of course, no. Are we going to pretend that residential schools were not a thing? One of my professors and mentors in university had to hide under the floorboards with her twin sister when they came looking for children to put them in residential schools. It was the only reason that she was not put in a residential school, and it is why I have so many things to say about the indigenous experience, because my mentors were people who experienced that themselves. Now, turning towards narrative. This is what Blinken is doing here. He's weaponizing narrative. Now, this is something that I talk about quite a bit. A book that I co-translated, shameless plug, Stalin, History and Critique of a Black Legend, is about the construction of narrative for politicized purposes by the imperialist West after the Second World War. It's available via Iskra Books, download for free, PDF, or you can order the print copies, iskrabooks.org. But it's all about narrative construction. It's about demonizing and constructing demonizing narratives against individuals and movements that are outside of that imperial core and the imperial system, and then exonerating any of the things that the West had done. We can talk about how there was famine in the Soviet Union. Of course there was, up until, the big one that everybody knows about was the last one. But Why do these same people that go on endlessly about famine that took place in the Soviet Union, with it again being the last one, there was never another one after that in 32, why do they not talk about the fact that 3 million people were deliberately starved in Bengal by Winston Churchill? That was an engineered famine. Even the people who claim that the famine in the Soviet Union was a result of policies of Stalin, serious historians agree, whether they are on the left or conservatives, that it was not an engineered famine. There was failures, but it was not engineered, and it was not engineered intentionally to disproportionately affect various ethnic groups within the Soviet Union. The Bengal famine is the opposite. It was intentionally constructed to starve the people of Bengal, the colonial subjects of Great Britain, on the behest of Winston Churchill. That narrative is not put out there, but the narrative against Stalin is. Blinken here is doing the exact same thing of weaponizing and constructing narrative, sometimes with a paucity of facts, in order to demonize the enemies of the imperial core, the imperial system, while then pretending as if none of us have eyes or ears to see the news, to listen to people who have experienced things, or read what has happened.
Well,
we have to pretend that these things haven't happened as a result of the imperial West.
Well,
Adnan,
that's what's funny about it.
Adnan and John after Adnan. Adnan and John.
Just a real quick point on this. What I think is really strange and funny is why he thinks he can get up there and, make these sorts of comments. I mean, he is just absolutely making himself ridiculous in front of the eyes of the world. Nobody believes this anymore, partly because everybody can watch exactly what's been happening in Gaza if they pay any attention, as long as they don't watch the mainstream media, their cable news. If they're watching Twitter, TikTok, and this is of course why they wanted to ban TikTok, is because it's not under control of the US security state surveillance apparatus, the deep state. But everybody already knows what's happening in Gaza, and they can see the rank hypocrisy. So there's absolutely no moral credibility left to the West. And it's astonishing to me that without a sense of irony or even adjusting his rhetoric, he just accuses himself in front of the world. There's some real disconnect that's going on here. I mean, even you were talking about what's going on in the Ukraine situation. I mean, even the New York Times has recently come out and published not a full account of, what people who followed any alternative news know, that there were peace negotiations in, April of 2022 that had a real chance of resolving the Ukraine-Russia conflict, and that Ukraine was willing to accept neutrality. But it was the West, with Boris Johnson sent on a special mission unannounced, shows up in Kiev and says, no, we can't allow you to make this deal. This has been known, that there were successful negotiations taking place. So to have Blinken act as if nobody knows and that people will believe him when he says this is truly, utter disconnect with reality. And, the U.S. empire is failing, but it's not only that it's a material decline, but it's an evident and obvious moral and narrative decline. I mean, those of us who have been anti-imperialists know that the United States has been hypocritically the worst perpetrator, while claiming to be, leader of the free world, has been the one who has killed the most people, who's oppressed the most people in the world. But now even casual observers can know this. So I'm kind of astonished that he even has the face and the guts to stand up in front of the world and talk about Russia's war crimes when they're supporting a genocide in Gaza. That has to be explained how that's possible.
Yeah, I only have 2 presentations left, and we can begin to wrap up. But John, I want to pass it to you. I know you want to chime in. Go ahead, brother.
Well, it's amazing that they would sit there and he makes out like Russia and everybody else is all the bad guys, but they don't think about the blood on their hands. One of my heroes is John Trudell. John Trudell said the great lie is that this civilization, it's not civilized. It has literally been the most bloodthirsty, brutalizing system ever imposed upon this planet. This is not civilization. This is a great lie. Or if it does represent civilization, and that truly is what civilization is, then the great lie is that civilization is good for us. And that, you know,
that's well
that's
said.
in a nutshell. And I mean, the biggest problem that we have is our education system. We take children and we just squish them. Take all their thoughts and their ideas and their innocence and just squash them and make them all one. So when they come out the other end, they're all the same. There's a great book called The Lies My Teacher Told Me. Can't remember the author. You can find it on our social network.
James Lowen, I believe, is the author of that.
Great book, because I mean, it tells exactly what really went on. And these are, you know, the lies that our teachers told us, the lies that our government tells us. And everybody claims that they're all the good guys and everybody else is bad guys. But they don't think about all that blood on their hands. How many people they've killed for money, for oil, for whatever.
Go ahead, Henry.
Just five seconds, or maybe 10.
No,
when you mentioned,
well,
when you said civilization and that society is not civil, it just reminded me of something that I tweeted this very morning. I said colonialism is like a cancer that spreads its toxic roots deep into the soil of nations, draining their resources and cultures. The civilizing mission is just a euphemism for colonial erasure, as colonizers impose their values on the colonized. I think it speaks to exactly what you're talking about, John, that civilization is nothing but a narrative that is weaponized by those trying to impose their will on others. I know that was more than 10 seconds, but I tried.
No, this is great. I'm greatly enjoying this conversation. What kind of civilized society has a skid row, for example? What kind of civilized society leaves millions in medical debt, which my family have been through? Millions of people who are not able to get health care. We have, what is it? Fact check me. 5 times less people than China? 5 times less people than China, but we imprison 1/4 of the world's prison population. What kind of civilized society creates a police state like we have done? And this is why a lot of Eurocentric minded people who are Western chauvinists, they can't rationalize this idea that they're the barbarians. One of the reasons why they believe all the lies about China and Africa and the DPRK, North Korea, white America, they believe every lie about every country told because they inherently believe that countries that are not ran by white men are barbaric. They may not say it like
white men now. It's not white men. You got every race under the sun in our country, and they're all falling. Some of them fall for that crap too.
Yeah, listen. But the idea that a lot of people have is that countries that are ran by non-white people are savages, which allow them to repeat their propaganda that China is barbaric, Russia is barbaric, Africa is barbaric. A lot of people had the idea that any country not ran by white men is barbaric. Meanwhile, when you look at the countries that are barbaric, the truly uncivilized society, you look at the United States. The United States that says a ceasefire in Gaza would benefit Hamas. Just like peace would benefit Putin in Ukraine. Peace in Taiwan would benefit Xi Jinping. What kind of barbaric society makes peace consistently their enemy? If peace is consistently your enemy, maybe you're the bad guy. Maybe you're the asshole here. That's the point I was making. Go ahead, John, if you have anything you want to say or wrap up. Because I'm gonna do another 10 to 15 minutes. I don't want to keep you guys too long. I do another 10, 15 minutes. We can begin to wrap up. This is great conversation. Great conversation. Go ahead, John, if you want to chime in.
I just want to see people stand up together. I'm 64 years old. I've been doing this stuff for 50-some years. I'm tired.
I get it, brother.
Okay? Tired to keep repeating myself. Keep telling people things. You get a few converts here and there, they listen to you. But the fact is, until we realize that we're all human beings, that we're all connected, and that the people that are above us have no concern for us at all, we're going to continue.
Yeah, well said. I'm gonna continue. I'll just have a few quick presentations that we can continue. And the point, and what I showed earlier. Actually, let me start here. I'm gotta be careful actually, because I actually don't know how much I can show on YouTube. What we are seeing out of Gaza, my friends, it's truly historic level evil. Like what we are hearing out of Gaza, once we get the true story of everything that happened, it's going to rock humanity to its core. You know how the story of the Holocaust rocked humanity? The story of what happened to indigenous people rocked humanity. What happened to indigenous slaves rocked. This is going to be one of the things that we really don't even know what truly happened yet. Just the details we already got is unthinkable. But then as we continue to learn, as we continue to get all these stories, it's going to be one of the things. And this is why I think Zionism is done, because it's over. The moral high ground is done. They are completely a scourge of humanity. And now I gotta be careful. In Zoya, my RBN family, I really hope I don't get us in trouble here. There's some stuff I actually cut here. It's literally unbelievable what I've been seeing, and we are getting a lot of these stories, all this evidence, all these testimonies that Israel is using dogs to rape Palestinians. I covered how they use hot metal rods to annually rape men to death. We have mass starvation, and guys, and this is not easy to share. This is not easy to talk about. This is literally horrific, and I might get our channel in trouble for this. Like there's this viral video of this Palestinian on this tractor, and it's going viral in Israel because they celebrating their bodies. You guys know there's a big Telegram channel, super popular in Israel, that's pretty much the snuff showing dead Palestinian children. This is literally the most barbaric evil we have seen. It's almost unthinkable. I can't even put this in words. And once again, I gotta be careful because I can't even show everything I want to show. Because
it's not new. It's been going on how long in Israel? Okay, how long? 50 years? 50, as long as I've been fighting this stuff that's been going on. How many thousands of children they've killed? How many they've got detained? This is, I mean, we sit back and we go, all the Jews were Holocaust, and I agree, that was horrible. But did everybody speak about the Congo and King Leopold?
Yes, sir. Did? That's a great point.
Okay,
that's a good
nobody
point.
speaks about that. You don't hear about that. He killed 5 to 10 times more people than any Holocaust ever did. And nobody knows anything about it. You ask anybody what they know about King Leopold, they have no idea.
That's such a great point, man. That's such a great point.
That's
what
and it's going to continue to go on. This is not going to stop. As long as we have a militarized industrial complex that wants to make money, it's got the only way to feed themselves is war. Without war, they don't have anything.
Go ahead, Adnan, if you want to try.
Yeah, just, I mean, it just reminds me so much of one of my favorite remarks and insights of Aimé Césaire, the great Caribbean anti-colonial thinker, in his wonderful work, Discourse on Colonialism. He said, you know, the colonized have experienced Nazism. Nazism is just, and the scandal of it is just that they did the violence that they've done to black and brown people in the colonies. They decided they could try it in Europe. And once they tried it in Europe, then it became a huge scandal. That's why we hear about it. But as long as it was happening in the colonies, you know, in Africa, in South Asia, Henry mentioned, you know, the deliberate starvation of 3 million people by Winston Churchill, engineered famine. You know, these things are, people in the West won't even believe you when you tell them this, that this is a fact of history. They just cannot believe it, for exactly what you were saying, Nick, is that the barbarism can only be, what the natives do, what the barbarians outside the West do, which is why, Joseph Borrell, who I guess will no longer be the foreign minister of the European community, said Europe is a garden and the rest of the world is a jungle. This is basically colonialist thinking that's been going on for hundreds of years, and it's why we don't hear about King Leopold, and how many people he killed in the Congo. And when you say, Nick, you showed that video, and you, as a person with a conscience who stands for justice, are of course totally scandalized, and you cannot believe that this could be unfolding. It's done for the Zionists. But you know what? There are so many people who don't believe that that is happening, won't, even if you show it to them, really take it to heart. I'm shocked. I'm more shocked not by what I see the Zionists doing in Gaza, because as John said, it's been going on for so long. What's even a little bit more shocking is how much equanimity there is in the West. The vast majority of people still are not touched and horrified to their core that they have to do something about it. Of course, there are many more people than there used to be who are expressing solidarity.
That's why I understand it, because I'm Native, and I know what they did to my people, my grandfather, my people. How they would come in and just wipe whole tribes out, just wipe them out, and then make themselves out to be good guys, and we were the bad guys.
Yeah.
Okay, it's been going on a long time, not just the United States, but France and Belgium and England and all these countries. They all are about colonialism and power. And as long as we can keep the people under our thumb, throw a few crumbs at them. What's said about Rome? Circuses and parades. As long as we keep them entertained, that's all that matters. And I see how it is, because I get taken off Facebook because when the kids got killed in Mexico, the students, and they had a protest where they did a naked protest. People went on the street naked and had things written on their body. I posted that on Facebook. Facebook, boom, you're done. I get throttled on Twitter because of the stuff we post. I actually get posting to say, "Are you sure you want to tweet that?" It's insanity that we try very hard to get people to understand what the hell is going on. But like you said, Adnan, I'm more appalled, not so much by the bloodshed and the genocide and the murder and the rapes and all that other crap. I'm more appalled by the people, and that are they allowing this to go on, and they don't pay attention. They just look at it and go, "Oh, well, they're the bad guys." No, they're not the bad guys.
It's crazy.
The one of the shit are the bad guys. That's what I'm disgusted by.
That's such a good point.
Don't see what's going on. You tell them, you show them, they're like, "Oh, well, they're the bad guys." That's always the rhetoric. And it's not.
Henry, I think you want to chime in, Henry.
Here he goes again.
Yeah, I think you try to restart again. I can't hear you. Try to restart again.
The imperial mode of living.
Just the one thing that does give me some hope, besides, of course, younger people who seem to be, clued in and pretty fearless and willing to fight, is the fact that if you would have said 8 months ago that Palestinian resistance would still be continuing under such an onslaught, I don't know if I would have believed it. I feared the worst. But what it shows is that a people that is resilient, that maintains its faith in the justness of its cause, they can face up against empire, and all the technology cannot overcome the solidarity of a resilient people standing on principle. It's just been absolutely amazing. That does give me some hope that those who are oppressors, they're oppressors because they want to enjoy the privileges and the fruits of oppression. They want to exploit others so that they selfishly will gain benefits. If they have to suffer, they're not going to continue with it. I believe that the Israeli economy, as the geopolitical isolation, that they will not bear the price. The Zionist entities' days are numbered because they are not willing to make the sacrifice that the Palestinian people are willing to make for their freedom. They're not willing to make the sacrifice for their oppression of others that the Palestinians are willing to make to fight for their liberation and freedom.
Well, Hamas was created by Israel to make sure that there was never a second two-state solution. Secretly funded through Egypt. But Hamas is the bad guy? Wait a minute. The puppet masters of Israel, or their Zionist government. But when you spoke about the young, as a native, that's something that gives me hope.
Yeah.
Because I've seen
And,
what our young done, like Standing Rock, and they're still fighting Standing Rock. I mean, you got a pipeline that's running right now, 500 barrels of crude oil a day, or 5,000, something like that, and it's illegal. There is no environmental study, nothing. It's an illegal pipeline, but it continues to go on. And Obama allows it. And he's supposed to be the great one, right? But
there's so many.
the youth give me hope because they stand up. And I see it in Palestine. I see it in my own communities.
Yeah, I love my little home. I love my little revolutionary homies, right? And speaking of how people don't stand up, and we seeing Gen Z and young Americans stand up and reject the establishment narrative in record amount. I don't understand, like John said, people who don't, because I said before, and I come from very generally conservative culture, and even though I still got some toxic masculinity in me in some way, and I explained this to you guys before. I have this almost spiritual, like it's like deep in my soul. Like I have to make this shit better for my niece and my younger cousins than where I left off. And I don't understand people who neglect this, especially people with children. It blows my mind. There's only one thing. There's one thing that we all got in common, that we're all gonna die one day. In about 90 years, this shit, I am not gonna be here guaranteed in 90 years. So the only thing that matters is making sure this shit is better than when you was born. And there are a lot of people who just abdicate that. They just plenty. I just want to watch Netflix all day. I don't jack off and watch porn all day. I don't get it. Why you guys see I dedicate my life to educating people through this and or organizing this, and I can't answer that question for people. Why don't people give a shit? Because I see the evil of our government. And it kind of roll into what the great point John was making earlier, talking about all the evils a lot of people don't talk about. You know that a lot of people invoke Godwin's law, for example. Godwin's law is everyone just talk about the Nazis. Whenever they talk about evil, they talk about the Nazis, and I'm guilty of that too. Sometimes you guys saw, I'm guilty of that. Everyone's guilty of that. And whenever they talk about evil, they talk about the Nazis. And why do the West do this? They do this because they talk about anything modern. They talk about what they did. They had to go all the way back to Hitler because you talk about the last few decades. You talk about Henry Kissinger. You literally talking about Laos and Cambodia.
Yeah,
Well, I've been reading about Cambodia. They bombed Cambodia to the Stone Ages, my friend. We killed 2 million Koreans. And you guys understand, in Gaza is horrific, but when you were seeing in Gaza, what happened in Cambodia and Laos? They killed so many North Koreans. There was no infrastructure left. They ran out of bombs. There were so many dead children, so many main people in Korea, and people are like, why is North Korea the way they are? We killed millions of their people. We killed millions of people in Vietnam, millions of people in Laos, Cambodia. So that's why whenever they talk about evil, that's why I love the point you made, John. Whenever people talk about evil, once again, I'm guilty of this too, they immediately go back to Hitler because they don't go to Hitler. They talk about the West, right? But anyway, let me do this very last presentation because we already going a little bit long here, but it's a fun conversation, and I'm gonna just end it on this. This will be my last presentation, and then we do one more last little roundtable here because this sums up the title I have. I had to do this so I know I wasn't trying to clickbait you guys, so I have to do the BRICS segment, and and I want to give you guys thoughts on BRICS. I'm very interested in hearing your guys' opinion on this because BRICS, what, 2 decades ago, was laughed at as an idea. Like the Western world, like, you guys, you're gonna fucking pose a threat to the G7. Now in turn to power purchasing parity, GDP, you have BRICS that surpassed the G7, which was unthinkable 15 years ago, my friends. Unthinkable. So why is this happening? It's happening because of this. The fact that the United States sanctions around 1/3 of the world's population. You guys know that? Yep. As liberals pretend that other countries are evil, you have the United States that sanctions 1/3 of the world's population. So, something that is a very interesting development is that the world is waking up and realizing that the United States dollar, the United States economic system is not reliable. So we are seeing this push toward de-dollarization. We have Malaysia, we had Indonesia, we have Thailand that just signed up. You had AMLO that floated the idea. Yeah, a lot of these countries that float the idea. Let me see if I can find this receipt I didn't have saved. But I saw something that said 59 countries. I actually got in my hotspot video that coming out today that are looking to join BRICS. And this is breaking U.S. dominance. And this is the last article I share, and I will get you guys thoughts on this. This is my last presentation of the day. This is you're starting to see the media panic, and I wish I could show you guys the Bloomberg article I found, but Bloomberg is paylocked. Bloomberg had an article. Maybe I should pull it up anyway. I'm pretty sure it's not going to be hard to find. Well, they essentially saying why is everyone abandoning America? Pretty much just throwing a hissy fit over this. Damn, I probably should say it. Let me see if I can find it. But let me read this headline. Analysis: why more Southeast Asian countries have signaled interest to join BRICS. So as MSNBC, CNN, New York Times, and Washington Post, and Jordan fucking Chang is running these fucking made up political fan fiction stories saying Russia and China is isolated. I know you guys saw that, all these stories. Russia and China is isolated from who? The genociders? Because I see the global majority, not the third world. We don't use those terms no more, my friends. Not the third world. The global majority is signing up into this de-dollarization agenda because they're tired of Western hegemonic dominance. So I keep my presentation short. I cover this a lot. I want to get your guys' thoughts on this. Let's start with Henry, then we go John and Adnan.
I'll open because I think that of all of the people you've ever had on the show, I'm the only one who lives in the city that BRICS is being hosted in. I live in Kazan, Russia, which is where the current BRICS summit is going to be hosted in October. The BRICS Games is going on right now. We have 5,000 athletes from, as you mentioned, the global majority who are here in the city right now competing. I'm going to be going to competition tomorrow as part of the BRICS Games. The BRICS Conference of Mayors is happening. Oh, it's terrific. Everybody should move to Kazan. Let me just tell you that right now. But I will say about BRICS, to not talk just about how great the city is and why everybody should come here, but let's focus on BRICS. There's two things to be said. The first is for people who, like me, are communists or socialists, BRICS is not necessarily indicative of coming socialism. That is something that I've seen an overly simplistic, well, the BRICS bloc is it's against Western imperialism, so therefore it's going to create an opening for socialism. No, my friends, I am sorry, that is overly simplistic, and you have to think much more deeply about that. What it is doing is it is creating an alternative to the Western imperialist core nations' dominance of the international political scene. It is creating an alternative to institutions like the IMF and the World Bank, where the G7 no longer has complete control over the mechanisms of power within the international global stage. This is creating an opening for freedom for countries that are outside of the imperialist core. But it is not necessarily the coming of socialism. It is not necessarily a socialist institution. We, of course, would love it to be. And we should support BRICS as an alternative to the imperialist core's system that they have set up in the global stage. But we should continue to press for the more radical edge and the more radical movements that are operating outside of the imperial core.
I'll pass it to the panel. Whoever wants to chime in, feel free.
Go ahead, Adrian.
Well, I mean, Henry made the right point that it isn't an ideologically coherent and consistent formation, but it provides some space in a multipolar world and alternative. So the important development is the People's Development Bank as an alternative to the IMF and the World Bank for alternate forms of financing for development by countries that don't have to be hamstrung by the neoliberal regimes and the, austerity projects that absolutely destroy public, social services and, investment in education and health and all of these other things that are absolutely necessary for genuine and real development. So that's a very positive, possibility. That's something that certainly is important about the BRICS. But one thing that you mentioned, Nick, is that the backfiring of the promiscuous use of sanctions by the United States is exactly what has created the dynamic for alternatives to the dollar as the reserve currency for financial trade and transactions, in the whole world. That is something that is extremely important. We had a whole series based on the book Sanctions as War. We had about 10, 12 episodes that were based on this analysis that sanctions that are often seen as an alternative to violence and therefore are acclaimed in international institutions have been imposed unilaterally by the United States illegally, and that their effects are just as disastrous as war. And so essentially the United States has been making war on, what is it, like a third of the world's population, and we have dedicated several episodes to case studies of Venezuela and the sanctions and its effects there, on Iraq, on Iran, on Syria, on all of these countries. And so I do encourage people to check out that series that we did on Guerilla History podcast of Sanctions as War, because we really need to understand the devastating effects and consequences of it, while also celebrating that it has backfired and it is leading to the possibilities for circumventing, U.S. sanctions by creating alternatives to the U.S. dollar.
Yeah, I'm glad that you guys focus on that on your guys' show. We can literally do a whole show on that alone. Like, I have done so many hotspot videos, so many panels and thought studies over sanctions, and we definitely going to have you guys back on again. So we definitely may do that, especially with de-dollarization. But go ahead, John. I want you to chime in on any thoughts. So we begin to wrap up. I think this was a great conversation. But go ahead, John.
What I found interesting recently was that OPEC, it's always been backed by the U.S. dollar since the 70s, is now no longer. They got rid of it.
Yeah.
It said no longer. Now, everybody thinks, well, we're going to change the world and we're going to make everything electric and all. You know how many barrels of oil these people got? It ain't going nowhere. And then we want to talk electric. And how do you feed electric? Coal-fired plants. And you speak of brick. To me, brick is nothing but something new. That's all it is. Put in a different package, a different wrapping, but it's all going to end up with the same thing. Colonial power. That's all it's all about. Ain't no other difference in it. They don't give a shit about their people. All they care about is how much money can we make. It's just something new in a different package. Communism, socialism, bad words. Everybody freaks out when they hear these words. But look at the root words. Communism, community, socialism, social. If you say, oh, social, oh my God, your health, your fire department, your mail department, everybody. That's all social. But like I said, I would like to see this brick actually do something and actually become something and some kind of force to be reckoned with. But I've seen enough of these so-called new order things.
I think it's always healthy to be skeptical, guys.
Exactly what they are.
You guys know I'm a very excitable motherfucker. I'm the hype man, but it's always good to have skepticism on any forces of power, which is why I'm glad that you brought that up, Henry. I'm glad that John said what he said as well. I didn't know when I was gonna plan on making a segment on this. I'm just plugging this. I just think it's funny because our friends at Hotspot showed my editor, my friend showed this to me. I thought it was hilarious that you had all these people that was explaining how Saudi Arabia had connections to 9/11, and now all of a sudden that Saudi Arabia is pulling out the petrodollar agreement allegedly. Now all of a sudden you got fucking 60 Minutes doing fucking these documentaries saying that Saudi Arabia is responsible for 9/11. You guys think that's a coincidence? I'm not spending the whole segment on this. I think it's just funny. Here's a tweet. 23 years of silence, and now all of a sudden they're willing to blame Saudis for funding 9/11. I may go into this more detail, hilarious, but now they're doing all these exposés. The West is so hurt over Saudi. Anyway, we can talk about these topics all day. It was a great having you guys
Make them out to be the bad guys. what we do.
I'll start with John. John, any last thoughts? And actually, Zoya, thank you for reminding me with your comment. I want to end it with you with this, because I know you do a lot of activism and a lot of education around Leonard Peltier, and I will pass it to you. And any comments that you may have. Thank you for joining us, and we definitely have to have you on again, John.
Leonard Peltier has been in prison nearly 50 years for a crime that has been proven he didn't do. People got to understand, in 1973 at Wounded Knee 2, it was not an occupation. It was a stand-up against the imperialism of their U.S.-backed councils who wanted to sell the land off for uranium. So, the FBI had to kill them all. Now, 3 years after Wounded Knee, they had what they call the Reign of Terror. For 3 years, AIM activists and those that supported him were murdered, hundreds, backed by the United States government, and nobody ever paid for it. 1975, they had Jumping Bull Ranch. The FBI decided they're going to send in 2 of their own as decoys, and they were going to kill every single buddy that's there. Everybody. They didn't do it, but they considered us the bad guys, and they were there to kill all of us. And now Leonard's paid the price, because Leonard could have been freed in 1993, I believe it was, if he would have admitted that he was the one that shot these agents. But the fact was, they sent their own agents in to be murdered. They had snipers in the hill. They don't never speak about Buddy, how he was murdered by an FBI sniper. He's never mentioned. And now Leonard, we're waiting. And hopefully July 11th, we'll see if he gets paroled. It's the first time he's been on parole in 15 years. He'll be 80 years old in September. Who the hell's he going to hurt? Let him go home. It's ridiculous. And it's all, again, that keep you under the thumb. We did this to him. We can do that to you. That's what it's all about. That's why they killed Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Hampton. All that was to keep everybody under control. Absolutely. We'll do this. If you don't, you'll wind up like them. And they were going to kill Leonard. I mean, he is not in for murder. That's what you got to understand. He's not there for murder. He's in there for aiding and abetting a murder. Okay? Aiding and abetting a murder. Who the hell's the murderer? His 2 co-defendants were found not guilty. So who is the murderer? Who actually did the murder? If you were saying he's only aiding and abetting. But still, you hold it held him for nearly 50 years. And that's to keep the natives under thumb. I hope he gets out.
Yeah.
I've been fighting 50 years to get him the hell out.
Yeah, and I appreciate your activism and educating people.
Lamia is another one that's the same thing. Lamia was made a scapegoat to keep the blacks under thumb. You don't do what we say, you could be him.
The Pendleton 3 as well. I had a great guest who did education on that. I tried to spotlight political prisoners. It's something that people need to focus on, something that the West engages in. And thank you for your education on that. I want to pass it to Guerilla History Podcast. We start with Adnan first, then Henry. Any last thoughts, anything you want to plug as we wrap up? Thank you for joining us. We're definitely going to have you guys on again. We can go over sanctions. There's so many things we can talk about over a long period of time. It was a great intro show.
Talking about things. I mean,
Well, I'm so glad that John keeps bringing up the loss of our political leaders, our radical heroes and figures to assassination. The very first episode we did was with Vijay Prashad, called about his book Washington Bullets, and it's how the United States has assassinated and killed and undermined resistance movements for justice around the world, domestically and around the world. And you keep mentioning Malcolm X. Why did Malcolm X get assassinated? I mean, when he was just, talking about domestic issues in a domestic context, he wasn't so dangerous. But when he started questioning U.S. imperialism and forging relationships and solidarities transnationally with anti-colonial struggles and anti-racism at home and connecting the two, then he became super dangerous and they had to eliminate him.
Go something COINTELPRO.
Yeah, COINTELPRO.
Yeah, they took and they went after everybody. Puerto Ricans, Mexicans, Native, Black, any organization at all, they went after them. Did everything they could to destroy them, and they did.
We just scratching
Absolutely.
the surface, my friends. We got so much to cover.
So I'll just conclude.
The
I'll just conclude by saying, free all political prisoners from Turtle Island to Palestine.
There you
What's
go.
that, brother? Henry, any last words?
Yes, and I'm going to apologize for the technical difficulties. My computer is as old as the hills, but I would like to thank you for the invitation, Nick. The next time that we're back on, I'll use my wife's computer. It's a lot nicer than mine. But I would like to, again, thank you and your audience for the time and the space in order to have this conversation. And I appreciate the invitation for future conversations. There is so much more to say. I'd like to appreciate the contributions of you, Adnan and John. I'd recommend the listeners to check out the Guerilla History podcast. Like I said, we have about 170 episodes at this point that range between 1 and 3 hours long, most of which feature expert guests and academics, writers, journalists, political prisoners, people like, we could name many of the guests that we've had, but you can find Guerilla History wherever you get your podcasts. I also would like to recommend people check out Iskra Books. I know I've mentioned it a few times throughout the show, but didn't really mention what it is. It's a small, independent, volunteer-run Marxist-Leninist publishing company that I'm an editorial free because it is a political education project first and foremost. So you can download any of the books that you would like at iskrabooks.org, or you can help support the project by, of course, ordering print copies, including the book that I mentioned. I co-translated Stalin, History and Critique of a Black Legend by Domenico Lasurdo. So, yeah, check out Guerilla History. Yeah. Look at the Iskra Books catalog. We've got a lot more stuff coming out. I've got another book translation project coming out later this year, and I look forward to future engagements with all of you. So thank you very much, in solidarity with all of your listeners.
Yeah, we just scratched the surface. We can do this for another 90 minutes if we wanted to. We definitely got to do another follow-up. You guys know what we're doing here at Nick at Night, Nick at Noon, Nick at Anytime, banger after banger. Johnny, anything you want to add?
I just want to say thank you. Because we don't, as a native, we don't get asked these things very often. And when they speak about race, we're kind of like left in the dark. They don't want to talk to us about it. So I appreciate being brought on and let me rant and rave.
No, it was great. I'm definitely gonna have you on again. We specifically made a point where we want to platform as many indigenous people as possible. It's actually hard to find them. And Zoya, that's why
it is, because people were scared. People are scared. Like I said, I've been sanctioned.
I get it. You
know,
I have Palestinians on, and they have their camera off, and I'm like, that's fine for me because they get retaliated against. So I'll definitely understand it, John. I definitely understand it, and I appreciate having you on. And we definitely will do this again because we still got a lot more to cover. You guys know,
it's great hearing you guys from Guerilla. You know, I've seen some of your stuff, so I appreciate what you do.
Nice solidarity here. I appreciate you guys for joining. Make sure you guys check out all their content for this edition of RBN Roundtable, which I'm gonna try to make a thing every 2 Saturdays or so. Bring a roundtable of amazing intellectual comrades on. So I hope you guys enjoyed. We dropping banger after banger after banger. If you haven't seen, Sabby and JB had the reparations panel yesterday with another roundtable of intellectuals. This is the new era of RBN. A lot of great intellectuals brainstorming a way to advance a better future for us and our families. So thank you guys for joining. Have a great weekend, my friends.
Thank you.